All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Pooch podcast. My name's Carl,
My name's Sam.
and we are here to talk about your Week 3 games. It was an eventful week
week
in the
3.
NFL. I wouldn't say it was as eventful as Week 2 with all the injuries and big names going out,
That was a
but
much
this
quieter
week,
week,
yes, it was
which
much
was
quieter with
good.
a lot of the backups
Except for the
doing
Niners.
backup things. Yeah,
Niners still,
the backup. Yeah, except for the Niners.
they lost more people.
Yeah.
God, play Sarah McLaughlin. Jordan Reed, you were back for a week. Jerick McKinnon, you were back for a week.
Do you have any notes for the entirety of the NFL for this week?
It's not just this week, but the officiating has been terrible.
I'm just choppy.
Watching these games, and in specific, the call I've noticed that I think has been called a lot more than I can ever remember is OPI.
Yeah.
And I think that they're calling PIs in general really willy-nilly. I've seen, as the past couple of years have demonstrated this too, but roughing the passer, I saw that hit on Joe Burrow. I don't understand how that was roughing the passer. I really don't. It was a good football hit.
Football hit just after he released the ball.
I've just seen a couple of these things. I just don't understand it. That Chargers OPI made no sense to me. He did not push out, But I don't know. Maybe the refs need the preseason too. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. That maybe they kind of get some of these, figure it out moments in there. But, we figure as we go. I don't think any of these games were decided because of a flag. I know
the
that
Buffalo
Rams,
Bills was.
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't think so because yes and no. It was
decided because of a flag. It was fourth down.
It was but the game would have been so different. I guess it was one game was decided, but it was a counterbalance flag. It feels like because the Rams got a made up pick earlier in the game.
That interception was not an interception.
No,
the tie goes to the offense. Everybody knows that except for those refs that day.
Yeah. I'll say there actually was another hit I saw. It was in the Bears-Falcons game where I think it was Matt Ryan got hit. It was just a good hit, and they called roughing the passer, I believe, on it.
I think they're looking to protect a lot more people this year, especially after all the injuries that are going down. This is going to be a tough year for everybody because everybody's not in the physical shape that they normally are in with that preseason. They take a few bumps, they get ready for it.
Yeah, it just worries me that refs are going to make these calls and it saves drives and whatnot. It didn't matter for Atlanta, but Big Dick Nick's back in town, baby, and now he's a Bear. It's a lookout world. But no, right. Let's get into it. Thursday night football.
Thursday night's game, yeah. Miami at Jacksonville.
It's better than this week's Thursday night.
Oh, what's this week's?
Denver and Jets, baby. Basically the Super Bowl. This is the Super Bowl because it's which team gets Trevor Lawrence.
If we're being honest, the first Thursday night game was good, but besides that, the last two have been okay at best.
I hope it's Denver. I hope Denver gets Trevor Lawrence and they just have like a juggernaut team. It's like San Francisco. So everybody got hurt on San Francisco, so they got Nick Bosa and then just came back the next year and just clobber-knotted everybody. I hope it's that. Just fuck everybody. Put the surfer boy, East Coast surfer boy instead of the West Coast one. They both look kind of weird. That's John Elway reference. All right, let's Dolphins Jaguars. The Jaguars looked a little more like I thought the Jaguars would. The midnight came closer.
Yeah. Just so the audience knows, we're doing the format of positives and negatives for each team in each game. So, Sam, what do you have for positives and negatives?
Jacksonville looked like Jacksonville. They're missing DJ Chark, I know, which is huge for Minshew because that's kind of the competent wide receiver on this team. That James Robinson looked great. This team just looked like it was missing things. It looked like the team I expected it more to be, which is a little all over the place, inefficient, and inability to kind of stop teams. Miami looked great. Miami looked exactly how I thought Miami would in games, which is nigh unstoppable at parts. I know I'm exaggerating them a little bit, but they just looked like a good, competent run football team that has potential.
Yeah.
They definitely need to add offensive weapons in this draft, but
yeah,
I mean, yeah, they looked. I granted it's Jacksonville, but they've looked good 3 weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with Miami. My positive for Miami was the offense seemed totally efficient all game long. If they were running, they were getting chunk yards. With Jordan Howard and not Jordan Howard. Gaskin was going off. It was just a well balanced game for Miami. Fitzmagic looked amazing. However, his stat line doesn't really show that, except for his completion percentage at 90. He was 18
MVP,
for 20.
Baby.
Yeah. He was 18 for 20, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 7 rushes for 38 yards and 1 rushing touchdown, which is really damn good. They did have a problem, though. The Dolphins did. They let Minshew tear open in the middle of the field most of the game.
They just do that, baby.
They just had crossing routes that were always getting those chunk yards to keep drives going for him. So, moving on to Jacksonville, the only positive I saw was James Robinson and Minshew's connection. I think he's growing a little bit more confident in Robinson every time he throws to him and every time he hands off. Robinson had 11 rushes, 46 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then 6 catches for 83 yards. A wonderful stat line for the type of offense that they run, especially those 83 pass yards or catch yards. But Jacksonville's defense could not get any pressure on Fitzpatrick at all. I think they had 1 sack all game, and it was because he stayed in the pocket for like 5 or 6 seconds. So Jacksonville has a lot of problems on defense still, and I didn't see any improvements from last week.
So let's say I have a question for you, because Miami drafted themselves a rookie quarterback named Tua. I was going to try and say that last name, and I am
Tagovailoa.
Yep, thank you. I'm too white. No, but I mean, let's say you're looking at the barrel of week 12, and you're 5-7. You're like, all right, we're not winning the division. We're not doing anything. Do you play him, or do you say we're not going to risk the injury? It's a losing season. We just take it. Because I have been wrong about my 2 other quarterbacks. I said Nick Foles would start immediately. He did not, because the Bears don't like winning. I guess it's not totally true because they're 3-0. But and I said that I didn't think Herbert would start. And if he did, it would be late in the season. He's obviously now pretty much the starter, although Anthony Lynn keeps trying to say that Tyrod Taylor will be the starter, so it's very confusing to me.
Yeah, I mean,
and I didn't think Tua was going to start. So, I mean, just full on, do you think Tua's going to start this season, or do you think it's just going to be we're running Fitz?
Well, if we get to week 12, which is their first game after their week 11 bye, they play the Jets, and then the next week they play the Bengals, and then they play Kansas City, New England, the Raiders, and Buffalo. I think if it is a losing season, say they're 4-6 at this point, then yes, you start to you get them the 6 games experience that pretty much that Drew Lock got at the end of last season. Not as many.
And now Drew Lock's hurt. So what does that tell you?
He saw NFL game time, so that was very, very important, especially in this kind of odd season that we're having. I could also see them keeping him under wraps, just trying to keep him healthy. Because Fitzpatrick, I believe, only has his contract through the end of the season.
Yeah, I think it's just a 2-year deal.
So it's up in the air, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did it in week 12, starting him.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. We have San Francisco back in MetLife against the Giants. Holy hell, 36-9.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan is an early coach of the year for me with this. He's lost most of his starters, and not on one side of the ball, but on both sides. And they've lost their backups, and he is destroying teams still. Granted, it's the Jets and the Giants.
The Jets and the Giants. I don't think.
Hold on. If this game had been 20-13, 20-17, everybody would have been like, the Giants played well, but the Niners were so hurt. It's 36-9. The Niners looked good still with Nick Mullins is a good backup. Like, they're still rolling in this team. So this system clearly is great. And to be able to do it with basically backups and third strings at most of your positions, that's really impressive. And the Giants looked like shit. That defense is awful. They're losing players left and right. Like, they look bad. Them and the Jets and the Denver Broncos are all in this shit boat for first place. The Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. But the Giants don't want that because they have Daniel Jones, who actually looks competent if you have a healthy team on the field.
So, I mean, I'll start with the Giants. There's a fun stat I like to point out. I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. Daniel Jones has only ever had one game in his entire career with 0 turnovers. Yikes.
Yeah, and that's like Matt Stafford, so.
No, not even close to Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford can throw the ball.
Yeah, but how many games does Matt Stafford without a turnover?
Brett Favre threw it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Daniel Jones is ass, and we all know that. And you're the only one in this entire
I am not
in our entire friend group
one
that defends him. I don't understand it at all. But moving on,
I'm not saying that he's like God on earth. I'm just saying the kid has some potential past what we thought, and this franchise is ass.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly. I think he's a bust.
He looked good against the Steelers when they actually had a team to field. He almost won. They almost came back and beat the Bears, who have an elite defense.
No, I don't. He's not even a good quarterback to me.
Well, you live in fantasy land.
For the Giants, the only positive I saw was the pass rush was constantly on Mullins. Seems like that San Fran offensive line is kind of getting beat quite a bit. Besides Daniel Jones, the downside to the Giants was none of the offense could get going all day. It was mainly Daniel Jones. He was forcing balls, overthrowing them, and throwing one pick. He was 17 for 32, 179 yards, 1 interception, 0 touchdowns, and he had about 50 yards rushing. He was their leading rusher at one point during the game in the first half.
Yeah, because their team is bad right now. Everybody is hurt and or bad.
He is also the reason for that. A reason for that. Yes, absolutely. He is an inadequate. He does not have a football mind.
I don't think that's fair to say for somebody who hasn't been able to play with a fully fielded team.
Last year he had a fully fielded team on offense.
No, he did not. They only had 2 games where they had their full offensive set. They were constantly out of receivers. Evan Ingram was out at times. Everyone else. Saquon was out for large periods of times. Wayne Gallman was their RB1 last year for periods with a terrible defense and a shit coaching job. Like, this team is not.
Excuses. We can give excuses to everybody on that team. We could give excuses for everybody the same way on the Jets. But both of those quarterbacks are absolute ass. No, there's not a difference. Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones are the same exact quarterback.
Sam Darnold is going into year 3 where he's had moments, and now it's becoming
Daniel
clear
Jones is going into year 2.
Moments. Again, though, different situations, because I've seen when the Giants have weapons on the field, Daniel Jones competes in games. He nearly beat the Steelers and the Bears. That's not nothing against 2 good defenses. And he lost Saquon early.
The Bears have been lit up each of their 3 weeks. They're not a good defense this year. They're not. They've been lit up in all 3 of their games. All 3 of them. They are not effective. They weren't even effective as a pass rusher this past week. They weren't. The Bears defense does not deserve the clout that it's gotten in this offseason at all.
The Bears defense has been good this season. Yes, it has. It has. But okay, moving on to the awesome.
I didn't finish San Francisco. Oh. San Francisco, the positive for me was that even though Mullins made some backup mistakes, he was dropping dimes, absolute dimes. He was 25 for 36, 343 yards and a touchdown. Great job by Nick Mullins. That was awesome to see. He was just zipping them in there. And then the negative was their long snapper. Their long snapper had 4 absolutely terrible snaps, cost them 5 points during the game. I know it didn't come down to like that in the end, but that long snapper
could have been 41-9.
He might be pulled. It was 4 fully terrible snaps all the way up throughout the game.
All right, we have it. We have the first one of the season. It was a tie.
Oh,
Cincinnati and Philadelphia.
Worst
Good God. It looked like the same team, but one of them is a promise and one of them is alarming. Cincinnati, same shit every other week. If you don't get an offensive line in here soon, you're going to have Andrew Luck 2.0 with Joe Burrow.
Absolutely.
Joe Burrow looked good. T. Higgins got a couple more snaps. It's bad.
Higgins got quite a few more snaps. I had him on my bench in fantasy this week. Yeah, 21 points.
Philadelphia, injuries hurt. I don't know who IR is, but stop signing him. It's bad. It's bad. Carson Wentz, look, above all things here too, though, Carson Wentz has not looked good this season. I understand there have been a lot of injuries, but there were a lot of injuries last year too, and I saw him make dime throws and just absolutely MVP, like actual MVP play. Maybe not stats, but he was playing like a fucking MVP. That run they went on, that end of that season run they went on, was phenomenal. He was chewing people up for dinner with nobodies. Yep. This year, it's bad. It's bad. I watched him hit Miles Sanders in the leg, throw it at his feet, over him. I mean, every which way but into his hands. I saw him hit Greg Ward a bit. I saw Zertz. I'd stand by. If Doug Peterson had not won that fucking Super Bowl right off the bat, basically, he would not be the head coach still. His play calling is questionable at best. Like, the Eagles look bad. They're probably going to be a top 10, if not in the top 10, like 12th draft pick this year. It's bad. It's rough.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the Cowboys definitely have an easier path to the division this year.
Whoever wins this division has the easiest path, because this division right now is chasing its own tail for nothingness.
Yeah. Do you know the record for the entire NFC East?
Yeah, it's like 2 and something.
It's 2-9-1.
Or yeah, because there's a tie now. This game looked bad. I caught the fourth quarter and in overtime. And of course I went back and I watched a bunch of it, but it is bad. I didn't understand the play calling in overtime. I didn't understand it. I really, really didn't. The Eagles looked bad. Bengals looked like they have a guy for the future.
Yeah. I'll start with the Bengals. My positive for the Bengals was that Burrow absolutely tore up Philly's defense. He threw 44 times, a lot less than the 60 or 61 that he threw last week. But that's because their running game got going. He was 31 for 44, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Not a bad day for a rookie quarterback whatsoever. You know, I would say the negative for Cincinnati was their secondary was absolute garbage, and then the offensive line was even worse than that. It didn't seem like there was any offensive line, and that leads me into Philadelphia's positive, which they sacked Joe Burrow this last game 8 times. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You cannot let your quarterback get sacked 8 times in a game. And then, not to beat a dead horse here, but Carson Wentz's decision making was the thing that brought Philadelphia down. He he had just as many touchdowns as interceptions again this week. He only threw for 225 yards against a depleted secondary of Cincinnati. So his effectiveness is starting to be in question for me quite a bit.
So we move to Raiders Pats. I had the pleasure of watching this game in its entirety. Jesus Christ, this game was boring. Look, for both of them, I think it was the same thing. The defenses looked good for chunks of this game. The offenses looked good for chunks of this game. New England shut down Darren Waller. And once that happened, the Raiders weren't really able to move a ton for parts of the game. They got to Renfro towards the end. But I think with the Raiders, it looked kind of like what I thought. They'd have games where they looked good, have games where they looked bad. And they hung in here for a large chunk of the game. So I really liked what I saw out of the Raiders. New England just ran all day. They didn't need to throw that fucking ball. Rex Burkhead was a monster. They were killing them with screens, and the Raiders just had no answer to the outside moves.
Yep.
So, New England did what New England does, which is they're not here to play their game. They're here to play whatever game beats you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start there with New England. My positive was the established run game early and often. They established a big lead and then ran it to it seemed like to ice the clock, but then the Raiders let them get like a 50-yard run with Sony Michel, and it was a field day for the running backs, especially with Rex Burkhead too. A negative for the New England Patriots was Cam was not looking sharp at all. He looked amazing against the Seahawks, but this game he just seemed like he was just fluttering around, not really knowing what to do. And it seemed like Cam of old, in like 2018 Cam, where he threw a terrible pick trying to force the ball on the sidelines, I believe, in the first half, early in the first half. And it just, I was worried when I was watching the game at that point that it's going to be Cam of old, but he came back, he threw some great passes, but really they were running all day and Cam really wasn't needed. He only got 162 yards passing. But the Raiders, it was hard to find a positive for the Raiders this game. I saw much better movement from their wide receivers, getting separation than they have in the past 2 weeks. So I guess I'll give them that. And then, they were great after the catch as well. But the main part of the Las Vegas Raiders offense that needs to get going for them to be successful is the run game. And they couldn't get it going.
Yeah, there was nothing on there. Just nothing could get moving.
Nothing at all. Their offensive line couldn't move anything. And, you brought up Darren Waller not being very effective. I did look into that, and he did have a injury this past week in practice. Knee injury.
They just that New England defense was not letting Waller get remotely open. Was not letting him get remotely, because if they're able to get him going, then they can get passing attacks moving, and they knew that you shut Waller down, the Raiders offense slogs a little.
Yeah.
But that's part of the problem with Gruden's, 2003 offense.
It's true. He's so stuck in his old ways.
No. No, I mean, I'd be excited for the Raiders in the next 2 years. I think that they have a lot of, potential talent here. So we'll move to, man, this team is just killing me. Bears, Falcons. Bears looked like a totally different team the moment Big Dick Nick came in. Yep. They just were sloshing that ball around. That first couple, I think the first drive or two from Nick Foles looked rusty, looked not great. I was kind of like, oh, God.
He threw a pick on his first drive.
And then all of a sudden he was like...
Which was not a pick, by the way.
I'm back in. He said, I'm back. I got the Super Bowl, baby. And he was hitting Allen Robinson. He was hitting dimes. Tyven Montgomery was getting open again. And Atlanta... What is there to say about Atlanta that hasn't been said? They choked. They're choking this season. That's what they're going to do.
They didn't have four of their defensive starters again this week, though.
And they lost Russell Gage, so the offense definitely stalled, but the running game picked up where the passing game wasn't. So Look, Atlanta just can't seem to finish this a half. So I don't know what there's I want to see next week with Nick Foles now as the definitive starter. So Trubisky's out of the NFL. That's how I genuinely feel. We will not see Trubisky start. We will not see him play another down.
I doubt that
in the NFL unless something happens to injury on this team. He's not going to get signed by another team.
I think whoever doesn't get Trevor Lawrence is going to sign Minter Trubisky.
No, I'd rather take a shot on Fields.
That is my nope. We are going to talk about the Washington game. No Ohio State quarterback has ever been successful in the NFL.
So let's get to what probably is the most controversial game of the week was Rams-Bills.
Wait, I didn't get to talk about Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez Louise, Sam.
What is there to say?
Well, listen. I will repeat, the positive for the Chicago Bears is that Nick Foles is in now. Like, now they're a dangerous team, in my opinion. The Packers don't play him until week 12, so I'm not too worried about not having enough tape on him. But a definite negative in this game was that Tariq Cohen tore his ACL. So that is a huge blow to this Bears defense Bears offense that would allow them to change the pace of the game a little bit. If they can dump it down to Tariq Cohen and have him, gain those 12 yards to get the first down or break off for a big play. Don't have that now. Their running backs are second string and behind now. So that's very, 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 very bad for Chicago. Now they're just a passing team. Offense for Atlanta was the best part of the game for Atlanta. They're still efficient and they're getting in scoring position. It's all about capitalizing and getting those touchdowns. The defense gave up another embarrassing comeback. It's so sad because Matt Ryan is such a good guy and a really good football player, but his defense just fails him day in, day out. He'll put them up and then Dan Quinn calls terrible plays. So I don't think Dan Quinn makes it in Atlanta after this year.
Yeah, we have 2 guaranteed coaching changes this offseason.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, all right, you want to talk about
so Bills-Rams game? So I'm going to avoid the controversial stuff for a second. Bills looked phenomenal in the first half. They looked Josh Allen putting up those MVP stats. He's right there with Russell Wilson in this race. I don't know if it's because we live on the West Coast that we hear more about Wilson, but Allen's putting up amazing numbers. The Rams offense looked great in the second half of this game. They looked phenomenal. There were 2 big calls that were really controversial that kind of changed the flow of this game. A lot of people talk about that pass interference call shouldn't have been called. It is what it is. But the pick that gave the Rams some momentum was a fake pick. So, like I said, refereeing calling here's odd, but Rams, you got to play the first half, and Bills, you got to play the second half. So that'd be kind of my takeaway is that these teams kind of seem to flip position.
Yeah. I'll start with the Rams. A positive that I saw was this offense is staying efficient.
That offensive line is back, and that's changing the world for Jared Goff.
Exactly. The play action for Jared Goff this season has been deadly. The running attack isn't as big as it was with Gurley, for sure. But Darrell Henderson and
Malcolm Brown,
and then when Cam Akers comes back, that's a really good backfield.
2 of those players have been good.
It's a good backfield, and
I agree with you.
They weren't as efficient as they normally were in the first half. They were still getting down the field. It's just that penalties and just kind of terrible plays kept setting them back, so getting out of field goal range and having to punt it, and just not really putting up points like they should have been in the first half to make it a competitive game. And then the bad thing I would say though was their defensive backs. Even though Stephon Diggs was covered the entire game just so well, I think he only got 4 catches. But the defensive backs gave up just absolutely so much space to these Bills wide receivers that are untested. These Bills wide receivers are not big names, but Jared Allen is making them look amazing because they are getting so open, and Jared Allen is right there with the ball. And moving to Buffalo, Josh Allen is having a field day. I think him and, just like you said, him and Russell Wilson are the two MVP candidates for me. He was 24 for 33, 311 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, which was a really bad interception, and I believe he fumbled it as well. In the second half, he got strip sacked by Aaron Donald,
player in football.
Yeah,
probably the best non-quarterback in football.
The biggest thing for me in this game was the absolute downhill spiral that the Buffalo defense went starting mid-third quarter. They were allowing Jared Goff to absolutely blaze them with it was also the play calling. There were some designed runs with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and it's just a very efficient offense. And if you can't stop them within the first 5 yards, they're going to go and they're going to make you look silly. And they made Buffalo look silly. They were up 28-3. That's ridiculous. You cannot let them come back 25 points and make it an absolute game. So, Jared Goff with a stat line of 23 for 32, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 1 rush TD as well. Not a bad day. The 1 interception could be curved. It was a bad throw. But, it's against a Buffalo defense that should be respected.
Yeah. So we move to Washington and the Browns.
This was by far one of my least favorite games to watch this week.
Browns looked like what Kevin Stefanski wants to run. Those running backs were not stoppable. Baker made some boneheaded decisions, so he's got to figure a couple things out. I think he's kind of in that ether right now about that year 3. Like, are you going to make the improvements or not? Because if not, they need to move on. But it's hard because he, more than anybody, has had flashes of being able to make these, dime throw packages in the same time, just boneheaded mistakes. This defense against Washington offense looked good at parts, but what I really took away is Stefanski just got to do what he wanted to do, which was, hey, look at that, Kareem Hunt's running down the field. Oh, look at that, Nick Chubb just ran out. Like, they just were alternating who gets to just bully a team. Washington, your front looked good still. You were still creating pressure. You're still making it difficult. Dwayne Haskins has about another week and a half to make an actual sign of improvement, or he's out of here.
Yep.
Ron Rivera's losing his shit. But at the same time, this running back groups, the play calling with the running backs is interesting because you don't usually see a team just opt to not have its best running back do the workhorse role.
Who are you speaking about?
Antonio Gibson. He's looked the best out of all of them.
But yet fumbled.
Everyone has a day. But Peyton Barber's looked like shit. J.D. McKissick's looked all right as like a backup, but I think that them not throwing the ball. I think the problem is the fact that they just don't think they have faith in Dwayne Haskins, which at this point I'm willing to say that my take was kind of wrong. Towards the end of the season, I thought he looked better, seeing as how he went into the most hellacious situation I could imagine for an NFL rookie quarterback last year. But this year, it's clear that he's not making improvements with a better team. And by all stretches, this is a better team than last year. And
they're still a shitty team, so that's saying a lot.
So they're they're looking at new quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised to see a veteran quarterback come in here. Somebody, I don't know whose contracts are up this year,
Mitchell
but
Trubisky?
Jameis Winston's available. Get Winston, fling it to McLaurin.
I think New Orleans is keeping Jameis.
Well, Jameis might have options, but I expect to see a new quarterback in here sometime relatively soon for Washington.
Yeah.
It will not be Alex Smith. Alex Smith is not going to play this year. There's no way. He's going to retire. It has to be said. I
want to see him play at least a couple snaps.
Give him a snap, and then he's going to get fucking hit and die again. It's not worth it for this franchise.
It would be the perfect embodiment of the franchise, if we're being honest, though.
No, this franchise takes. It does not give.
I'll start with Washington. My positive, if I could find one, was again Terry McLaurin. He had a pretty good game. The other wide receivers were getting a lot of space in that secondary. They were making Cleveland run all over the field with them and creating a big space in the middle of the field and then on the sidelines as well. The negative, just like you said, Dwayne Haskins' decision making is terrible. He had more interceptions than he did touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and he fumbled twice. He did recover one, but fumbled twice. He's not a good quarterback. He will not be a starting quarterback after this year. It's
hey, like can I interrupt you with breaking news?
Go ahead.
So this isn't actually truly breaking news, but James White has returned to practice. So James White is back on the field after his horrendous events. Yeah. So I thought that was a nice limelight that made me happy compared to thinking about this Washington football team, which makes me sad.
I'm very happy for James White getting back on the field. He's a former Wisconsin Badger, and I will always cherish the games that he gave.
That's also fantastic for the Patriots offense, just as a whole.
Yes. Well, now they have 3 running backs in that backfield that can do work. So.
And they get Damian Harris back.
Yeah. Getting back to this Cleveland and Washington game, moving on to Cleveland, the only real big upside that I saw was Nick Chubb. Just like you said, they're running all over this team. It was terrible all game long for them. Nick Chubb is an all-star.
They won the lotto with that Kareem Hunt extension that they paid him virtually nothing for what he's worth.
Yeah. So, yes.
This duo backfield.
I believe in all 3 games.
This is the best backfield in the NFL. Don't at me. No, at me. Bring it. Cleveland is the best backfield in the NFL. It's not even close. They have 2 RB1s. This is like what Carolina ran back in the day with D'Angelo Williams and Thomas Davis, I think. I got to remember that fat fuck's name.
But we cannot forget how Cleveland's defense took a siesta in the second half.
They let
Dwayne Haskins come back on them.
I've noticed that Washington has played tight second halves in all 3 of their games. That's when they've done their work.
They've been outscored in the first quarter more than any other team in the NFL.
Yeah, it's because Dwayne Haskins is like AOL. Takes a minute to boot up.
Well, their defense does as well.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to play. I struggle to criticize this defense. Obviously, it has criticizable parts, but when your offense is basically humping a doorknob for fucking 3 straight plays, it's hard to play defense. But you know what's not hard to play defense? When you're against the Houston Texans O-line.
I was just about to ask if we could go to that game because I really enjoyed this game.
Houston came out hot. Yes. They were I was like, damn, Houston's looking good. And then they dropped off because that's what this team does. They don't have true playmakers that really make the difference. They have trick play guys. Will Fuller's a great deep dive guy. Randall Cobb is actually probably Brandon Cooks is their best receiver, but I don't know what's his head, man. They looked a little all over the place, and Pittsburgh looked steady. Pittsburgh, I don't know what to criticize this team because it's the same shit as last year. It's just that they have a quarterback that's not humping doorknobs 3 straight plays. So he is competent. He's an old man quarterback who's just being careful with the ball a little more, and they're playing steady.
No, he's not. He's not being careful with the ball. It's
careful for Big Ben. For Big Ben, this is careful.
Disagree. He is slinging it just like he has when he had Antonio Brown. So.
But I mean,
I disagree with that.
At least. Pittsburgh is playing steady as she goes. They're not trying to play catch up. They're just playing their game, and it's working.
Yes, I'll start with Pittsburgh. They got back to exactly like you said. They got back to Steelers football. It is kind of lopsided because at least in this game it was. It seemed like the pass game opened up the run instead of the run opening up the pass game.
Sometimes that's how it be.
Exactly, but they were efficient in both of those. Big Ben was chucking the ball downfield, and James Conner had a day. 2 touchdowns. That he was on point. And he was the one that was getting them those tough yardage, those 3rd and 2s, 4th and 1s. James Conner was the guy for them. I actually have another positive for Pittsburgh, and that was their pass rush. They were swarming Deshaun Watson all game, and the only reason that Houston made it a game was Deshaun was avoiding them in the first half. In the second half, he was getting swallowed up in the second half, and that's why the game wasn't as competitive in the second half. But Pittsburgh's secondary was allowing Deshaun to gunsling that right down the middle of the field. It was almost embarrassing for a Pittsburgh secondary that is touted as one of the best in the NFL. You cannot let that happen. He has wide receiver 3s and maybe a wide receiver 1 as his wide receiving core, and they were tearing him up. So it's really I think if there was something for the Pittsburgh Steelers to look at heavily this week, it's their secondary.
They need to find a quarterback soon, though, because Big Ben does not have much time left.
Yeah, they should.
I watch him, and I see problems.
Houston, their positive was Watson. I think in this game, that was the only one that I saw. David Johnson got a little bit of a run game going, but not really. Deshaun was their entire offense, it seemed like, in this game, and it just
looks
wasn't
like they
enough
could use a true wide receiver 1.
Yes. If they could have a Devontae Adams type
like
of
a DeAndre Hopkins for
what he's doing in Arizona. Hopkins, yes.
What he's doing in Arizona would be really beneficial to this fucking team.
If they could have somehow gotten DeAndre Hopkins, that would make this Houston team very good.
There will be 3. I can think of 3 coaching changes now.
No, I know there's at least 5 happening.
But
the negative for Houston is their offensive line.
The offensive line hasn't changed. It's just it's consistent. At least they're consistent.
They have Larry Tunsil, but that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Tennessee, Minnesota. I can tell you right now what Minnesota's problem is. I've pinpointed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If Dalvin Cook doesn't get going, Kirk Cousins looks about like Kirk Cousins. So
I would agree with that.
No, it's the same shit. It's that they were built to pound the football, and Kirk Cousins needed to make play action or an occasional play, which he can very well do. He's very good at that, actually. If you just need somebody to just manage the game, he is an elite game manager. I'll give him kudos to that. Their defense is not good, so he has to make plays. He cannot make plays. He cannot. He was all over the place. But you notice once Dalvin Cook started pounding that ball more, and they had to pay more respect to that, suddenly Van Jefferson and Thielen were getting open more. Tennessee looked like Tennessee. I don't really think there's pros cons here. I think that they just played the game they wanted to play. There was a really bad pick that they threw that changed this game where Harrison Smith was just kind of floating, and I don't know how Tannehill didn't see him in the end zone just floating there, waiting. He was watching Tannehill, and I don't know how Tannehill didn't see it. If that was a touchdown, that game was 110% different.
Yeah.
But Tennessee's looked decent considering short season. Of course, now that we should talk about it, that Tennessee now has players that have tested positive for COVID. They have postponed the game this week against Pittsburgh. I believe Minnesota's as well being postponed against Houston. It's kind of funny that these 2 games just swap teams. So wait to see that. But Tennessee's looked all right. Tennessee's looked like Tennessee. They're missing their best receiver. So once they get A.J. Brown back, they should be a little better. But they've looked good. Like, they're winning games by close margins. That's what Tennessee does. They don't care. Yeah. They have Mike Vrabel, who is also, I think, a Coach of the Year candidate.
We'll see.
This is very early.
I wouldn't say no, but I wouldn't say yes.
Very, very early stuff. Honestly, Shanahan or McDermott are my boys right now. One of those 2.
I think Andy Reid's up there too.
Andy Reid is up for it every year. He doesn't count. It's like Bill Belichick. We get it. You guys are good. Fuck off.
All right. Well, I will start with Tennessee. The one positive that I really saw in this game was Tannehill stepped up when Henry was struggling early in the game. First half was not kind to Henry. I think he had maybe 30 yards, in the first half, and then second half he exploded. But Tannehill kept them in the game. he threw the pick, but he was going deep, which Tannehill doesn't do very often. So
yeah,
I was proud of how Tannehill played in this game. He was zipping the ball in there with everything he had, and he was extending drives by his play and not Henry's.
Comeback player. Like, I know he didn't come back for anything, but he came back from playing for Adam Gase.
That is a huge comeback.
Full season now.
For Tennessee, their defense could not stop the run at all. Dalvin Cook was running down their throats.
Yeah, it was very hit or miss, I noticed, on drive to drive with them. But that front, I think, is taking it. Jadeveon Clowney was the major addition. He's obviously was not in NFL shape, like a lot of these guys, it seems like. So I'm more curious to see.
He's a clown, bro.
I mean, we both don't love him, but like I'm curious to see more of the defense towards the end of the season than I am right now, is my one take. Yes. But you're right. I mean, Dalvin Cook was making them look silly, especially in that second half.
Yeah. Moving on to Minnesota, a finally efficient offense.
They looked so much better this week.
So much better. And, they barely lost, but, Justin Jefferson, what a standout game.
If you ask me what team that is doing terrible right now that you could see rebounding, it's Minnesota still. I think I said that last time we talked about this.
And
it has happened before. Teams have gone 0-4 and still rallied things up. I'm not saying they're going to, but if you ask me what team is going to do it, it's Minnesota.
I think Minnesota falls to 8-8 this season.
I could see it. I mean, that would be.
I think they'll have very competitive games. A majority of the time they'll have competitive games, but I think they go 8-8 this season.
They would probably love to have a shit season, go get a high draft pick and add something to that team, and then just come back like, hey, remember we were a playoff team not that long ago? Fuck off.
Almost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But their main problem was their defense. You were right. That defense could not stop the run to save its life in the second half, and then the run to pass play action that they ran in the second half, Tennessee, was dominant against this Minnesota defense. They were lighting up Minnesota in the second half. They were down by, I believe, 15 points and back. So this Minnesota team has a lot of issues, and a main one is their defense.
Yeah. Carolina Chargers. I liked Carolina. They look like they have a quarterback who has a chip on his shoulder. I know they have some issues and some holes, but they were missing their best player by far. Yep. They still, they were in here. They had some boneheaded mistakes that teams in this kind of situation make, which is that they're not great teams, but they looked better. They need some offensive line improvement. They're missing McCaffrey. Mike Davis is doing good. They need a defense, though. The defense showed up today, though, or Sunday against the Chargers. They really did. Justin Herbert looked a lot more like a rookie. Did not look like Justin Herbert. Looked a little bit more like Justin Hyde, which is kind of the problem with him. But I'm not worried about either one of these. I don't think there's anything I saw that I was hit the alarms. The Chargers team just looked a little dysfunctional, as they are known to be, and Panthers looked like exactly kind of what I figured they would be. They got a win here. I didn't think they would. That OPI at the end of the game is what cost the Chargers that fucking win, though. Chargers really could have gotten in there and done something. But, I mean, both these teams just looked a little all over the place. It's just the fact that the Panthers, had a quarterback who isn't a rookie, I think is really what this came down to.
I actually think that this game was fully in Carolina's hands the entire game.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start there. Their offense was efficient without McCaffrey, and that is a huge compliment. Curtis Samuel had a hell of a game. Robbie Anderson, hell of a game too. Not just a deep threat. He was getting those short balls and getting some chunk yards after catch.
Yeah, he's not playing for Adam Gase. He's happy.
Yeah, and Mike Davis also had some pretty good plays where he revamped an entire drive. I think he got a long 3rd and 10 run. And just kept them going down the field. However, their big problem was that they could not capitalize and get in the fucking end zone until they were practically given it. They did not capitalize on their first 4 red zone drives. They got field goals for the first 3, and then on the 4th one, they were going for a field goal, but then there was a penalty called, and then they got a first down and then got a touchdown right after that. So first 4 appearances were going to be settled for field goals. Then they come down, they get, I believe, a defensive play or a pick, and they get down to the, I think, 2 or 3, and they settle for a field goal again. They could not get in the end zone. It was ridiculous. They need to somehow find a way to get in the end zone that's not McCaffrey. It's embarrassing for a team to go like that. It reminded me of the Lions-Packers game last year. The Lions came out stomping the Packers in the first half, but the Packers just made them kick, I think, 3 or 4 field goals in the first half, and that allowed the Packers to come back in the second half.
Yeah, if you got to take 3 instead of 6, it'll kill you.
They should have dominated this game. They had all the weapons to. They just couldn't capitalize. The Chargers, the only upside that I saw, besides, Herbert threw for over 300 yards, but it wasn't, like you said, it was a rookie game. Austin Eckler had a very good game.
Keenan Allen looked good.
Keenan Allen looked okay. He wasn't
that Joshua Kelly fumble killed them. That hurt. Dumb turnover. The Chargers making dumb turnovers, which is a staple of that franchise. It doesn't matter what quarterback, apparently. That's just a Chargers thing. You put on that helmet.
Yeah. Austin Eckler did not drop a pass. He got thrown to 11 times.
He hasn't dropped a pass this season.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. He hasn't dropped a pass this season at all.
Oh, my God.
Austin Eckler is the highlight of this offense.
Rather have him than Saquon.
I would rather have, right now, sure.
Just you put on.
But the big problem with the Chargers is they get passed on heavily all the time. In their first 3 games,
where are you?
Derwin James not being there at safety position is
where are you? And
2 years in a row, him getting injured right at the beginning of the season is a killer. This defense is good. They're just not playing up to their potential, and it's really sad to see.
Yeah, I really haven't really seen a great defensive team yet. I'm waiting. This is week 4. I don't really want to talk about this game, Jets-Colts. I don't think there is much to talk about here. The Colts looked like they were fine. The Jets are, I'm sorry. Fire Adam Gase. Drafting Trevor Lawrence is not going to help your team. Don't do it. If you get the number 1 overall pick, trade that pick to a team that will give you a king's ransom of other picks and go fix your team. Sam Darnold is tradable. Jay Cutler at best.
Sam Darnold is tradable, and they should. For me, I'm going to make it quick. The positive and the negative for the Jets in this game was Sam Darnold.
There's 2 negatives I can think of that were really negative.
The pass protection
of negative.
The pass protection for Sam Darnold was also absolute trash.
You know what's funny is their rookie O-line pick has been phenomenal.
But
I can't
who else is around him?
Everything else collapses, and that one guy, you see him. He was even he's just beating people. He looked great. So good first round pick on that O-line. Everything else is garbage on this team. The pass rush is all right if you really want to dig for a nugget.
The pass rush is the only thing that's a nugget, but you have to dig for it. Indianapolis's pass rush forced bad throws all day from Sam Darnold, and 3 picks is amazing. That you're gonna win almost 10 times out of 10. 2 pick 6s. Yeah.
No, it was bad. It's bad.
For Indianapolis, I didn't really see a negative. It's hard to see a negative when you're playing the Jets. But one big one that I've seen this entire season is that T.Y. Hilton is not being involved in this offense, and I think we had a discussion off recording about this, and we both think that he's out of Indianapolis at the end of the season. I just don't think his chemistry with Philip Rivers is good at all.
He's just kind of reached a point on which injuries have really derailed him.
And he's he's only like he's pretty short for an NFL wide receiver. That's a stretching the field kind of guy. You know, if you're not Tariq Cohen, if you don't have Tariq Cohen's speed, you're not.
He's never been a great red zone player, but I love T.Y. Hilton. He's a great guy. Let's talk about an exciting game. Dallas-Seattle.
That you could say that was exciting for sure.
So I'm gonna start with Seattle. I'm gonna start with Seattle. The offense looked good. This defense, high school pass rush. No, go sign high schoolers. They might be able to help. Jamal Adams, luckily the injury doesn't sound like it's serious, so he shouldn't miss much time. Trey Flowers.
Same with Carson.
Dude, Trey Flowers was getting beat like no one's business. I will never forget for the rest of my life that interception that turned into a Michael Gallup first down. That was beautiful. Dallas. I want to talk about Dallas for a second. I've made it clear I am a Cowboys fan. This season has been marked for misery with me. It's inconsistency.
You're still going to win the division. Okay, you're still going to win the division.
It's inconsistency. I struggle with this team because there was, in the third and fourth quarter, this defense shut Russell Wilson down for chunks of this game. And I don't mean I mean shut him down. They made Russ look stupid. Like, they were all over these receivers. Trayvon Diggs popped that ball out of DK's hand. Trayvon Diggs is a stud.
That is a hustle. That's the hustle play of the year so far.
And you know what's funny? Is one of the most famous versions of that play is it's the Bills against the Cowboys in the Super Bowl, where Buffalo Bill did that too.
Michael Beebe.
So the consistency is a problem. They're getting off to these horrendous starts, which is what we did last season. Having to fight back. The penalties on defense killed a couple really good defensive stands. Alden Smith was fucking awesome. He was out for Wilson. It's just inconsistency. Zeke looked like shit this game.
That safety because of Zeke tripping in the end zone.
Yeah, it looked terrible. Dak threw that dumbass pick, tried to force that ball in there to Cooper. Didn't throw it ahead of him. Don't throw behind when the corner's right there. That was just a great play by the corner to realize that. So inconsistencies. The team looked better than it did against Atlanta. It looked a little more competent, a little more there. So my thought process is hopefully, around week 5 or 6, I see a team that actually comes to play in the first half, does well. There's clearly weapons on this team and an ability to compete. Mentally, they just need to focus and actually fucking do it. But this team is inconsistent, and if it continues to play like this, I'm looking at 7-8-1 winning the division like Carolina.
Yeah. I'll start with Dallas. I think the only positives in this game were Dak Prescott and
Cedric motherfucking Wilson.
Yeah. I think the defensive backs shutting down the receivers in the fourth quarter was definitely needed for the comeback, but they were getting lit up all game anyway. So the only real positive I saw was Dak Prescott, 37 for 57 for 472 yards, almost 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but the second one came at the end of the game when he was trying to win it. I don't really blame quarterbacks for those interceptions. But the negative for Dallas was that Wilson was able to throw everywhere on the field in the first half. The first 3 quarters, everywhere on the field, he was effective. And it was just sad. Tyler Lockett's 3 touchdowns against them, and then
he was wide open on all 3.
DK should have had 2.
Hold the ball, asshole. Deshaun.
Russell Wilson could have had 6 touchdowns this game. Put that in perspective. If DK Metcalf didn't do that, he would have had an MVP game. That moves me on to Seattle.
He already had an MVP game.
Russell Wilson's my MVP for the season so far.
He's one of 3. I'm just waiting for one of them to fuck up so I can say it's one of 2, and then waiting for another one to fuck up so I can just say, it's this one.
I think it's Russell Wilson right now. I think Josh Allen is a very, very close second, but Russell Wilson is in complete charge of his offense. And every single time he steps on the field, you think they're getting a touchdown. He was 27 for 40, the most incompletions he's had in the game so far, and that was because of Dallas's pretty good defensive back play in the first half, or in the second half. He threw for 315 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Again, though, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you cannot get a pass rush on Dak Prescott, who runs all over the pocket where, like, he just teases defensive linemen, it seems like, with sacks.
Yeah. These two teams both
and
kind
then
of
you
have...
get, like, they got 2 sacks on Dak Prescott, but those were because Dak was giving them.
Oh, Dak
gave them those two
basically
those 2 sacks.
one instead of just trying to. Yeah.
So Seattle has a huge problem with their defense. They added some key names, but the play has just not been there. They are trying to be very aggressive, but teams keep burning them for that aggressiveness, and they're going to need to.
The middle of the field is wide open on these blitzes.
Yes, they're going to need to do the same thing when we talk about the Saints. They're going to do the same thing that the Saints defense needs to do. Back off a little bit. Let them come to you and get those interceptions that Dak Prescott's going to throw. Just
play tight
be a little more patient.
Play tight.
Yes. I would like to talk about this Detroit-Arizona game if we could.
Yeah, so Arizona. Okay, before the season started, I am quoted as saying I think that Arizona is a lightning in a bottle team. There will be games where it is electric and it torches teams, and there will be times when it is self-destructive because it feels this need to try and compete and come back, and it makes dumb decisions. And Kyler Murray's still a young quarterback. This was that game. They destroyed themselves. Kyler Murray looked somehow he looked simultaneously MVP-like and like you need a new quarterback-like. Like I don't
know about that.
Like I'm just like he threw terrible picks. I'm exaggerating, but he threw terrible picks. I mean, just dumb.
That's not an exaggeration. He did throw absolutely terrible picks.
The next drive would torch Detroit's defense like it was paper.
Yeah,
and
Detroit's offense in the next drive threw like 4 tight window sideline throws to like DeAndre Hopkins.
Congrats, Detroit. Congrats, Detroit. Your team showed up again because you have an actual wide receiver who can create separation, who can cause distress in a secondary, and allows your other players to get open. This was the first game I really said, okay, Detroit actually has the team they want to be fielding. They looked good. This is the team I thought it would be. It's tight. The offense is going to win it. That's what I would say. I would say that I will say this about one thing. The 2 of the 3 interceptions Kyler threw were terrible. Jamie Collins did make a good play. I will give Jamie Collins credit. Jamie Collins made a good play
in the middle of the field. Yeah, that was a great
pick. But Arizona destroyed itself. Detroit maintained, kind of like Pittsburgh, they just held focus and moved forward. They did not worry about trying to make flashy. Arizona killed itself.
Yes. Arizona shot themselves in the foot for this game. That's the big picture here. Detroit just capitalized. I think this, just like you said, this is the team that Detroit wants to field on the team, or this is the team that Detroit wants to field each week. I think this is probably the best that they can play this season. I don't see them being very successful throwing the ball more than they were in this game. Matt Stafford tucked the ball and got sacked, I think twice, when he could have kept the play alive. So, I'll start out with Detroit. The positive is the three interceptions against a good quarterback in Kyler Murray. The bad was that there was no pass rush against Murray. There was no reason why he threw those picks. It was completely Murray's fault. So
it was when like Jamie Collins would come up on plays and stuff and kind of create some uncomfortableness.
Yeah, uncomfortableness, but no real pressure. Arizona sacked Stafford 4 times in this game. It's not the most we've seen, but it's still very efficient.
Isaiah Simmons, Chandler Jones, baby.
Yes. I would say another positive for Arizona was that Kyler Murray was able to kind of shake off the first 2 and kind of make it a competitive game, and then Yeah,
the third one. Okuda brought it up. Congrats to him.
Okuda, finally had a breakout performance. He looked sloppy last week against the Packers, but this week he shined, and I liked what I saw out of him. But the defensive backs for Arizona left holes for Stafford all day long, especially in the middle of the field. The touchdown to Kenny Golladay was just quintessential Detroit Lions. Just caused a little jam, and then Kenny Golladay right there. So
it helps when you have an actual wide receiver.
Yes, it does. You're not playing your wide receiver 2 at wide receiver 1 with Marvin Jones. It does help. So this game was sloppy on both sides of the ball, and the fact that Detroit came out with the win, I'm not surprised by. They're a gritty team. They're not well coached. I think this is a completely
4 coaching changes.
Yeah, This was a team effort, not a coaching effort, I would say.
They won in play calling of their coach.
Yes, they won in spite of their coach. Great way to put it. Arizona, I think definitely this isn't as big of a punch in the mouth as it may seem. I think Arizona learns from this game, and Arizona comes back and is even better this coming week.
Yeah. Tampa, Denver. I don't want to focus too much on here because Denver, like the Giants and the Jets, is just hurt at all sorts of places. So they did not look great. Melvin Gordon has looked like shit. Maybe Melvin Gordon's just not that good. Tampa concerned me. I'm going to be honest. They did not dominate the way I felt like they should, given the weapons that they're running. So I am worried. I mean, I've been obviously an avid critic of the moves they made in the offseason, but it concerned me. I felt like this team struggled at points with it still, so I'm curious to see. I want to see Tampa play another good team. The past 2 weeks, they've beaten up on teams that are bad, which is a good sign that they're able to do that. This offense, I think, is a little away from clicking, but they definitely were making plays still. Mike Evans was 2-2-2. So what a great stat line. 2 receptions, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin got hurt, though. This is the same injury that sidelined him for a bit last year, so that is concerning to me.
He's out for 1 to 2 weeks.
So he missed 4 with this same injury, so I think he re-aggravated it. So hopefully he's back quick because I think that he makes a world of difference for Tom Brady being able to hit that slot receiver there. But with Tampa, there wasn't much really to offense. Just kind of looked sluggish at times. I thought. I think
the run game for sure.
Yeah, Peyton Barber was great this game.
Not Peyton Barber.
Fournette, or not Peyton Barber. Ronald Jones. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you had anything that you really felt passionate about here.
I was actually really happy with Tampa Bay's performance in this. I thought Brady found his stride. If I would say the way that Brady played is the best that Brady can play with Tampa Bay. And I think we all expected him to have games like this the entire season. And in the first 3, he's only had this one. This is his first game without an interception. In the first game against the Saints, he threw 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then last week against the Panthers, he threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So this game, he had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 25 for 38, and 297 yards. He finally had some sort of click with Rob Gronkowski. So that's a plus, I would say, for this offense. But Gronkowski looked slow, sluggish, and not very effective anymore. He's not the same player he was, and I don't think he'll make it past this year. Tampa Bay's secondary is still the issue. Jeff Driscoll should not have been able to score 10 points against this team. He shouldn't have been. But he was. That secondary let him have it, at least in the first half. A plus for Denver was that Driscoll seemed to pick up the blitzes from Tampa Bay. Majority of them in the second half or first half, and made them pay for it with some big plays. either to Judy or they have a new wide receiver, Tim something, but he was also making plays for them. But they could not have pass protection to save their life, it seemed. Tampa Bay was all over Driscoll. They were blitzing him all the time, and Driscoll only caught him a couple times. So Denver's looking sad this year. Their running backs were not effective at all. And their defense did nothing.
So Denver, Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, man. They got to lose this game.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think Denver's getting Trevor Lawrence. I think Denver will get Mitchell Trubisky or
Denver's a dumb team, and they'll get like 3 wins. I mean, they'll probably just stick with Drew Lock. If we're being honest, Drew Lock got hurt. They'll probably just stick with him.
He's only out for what, 3 to 5 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks?
Yeah, it's like 3 to 5. So he's only got like a couple more. Packers Saints Sunday Night Football. This was a good game.
Yeah, it was a really good game.
I'm gonna start. I actually do have some concerns with the Saints. This game is mostly concerns because I think we all know the positives. Yes. I don't think either one of these teams we need to address that. Saints need Michael Thomas back. Drew Brees has looked like age has caught him. He cannot make some of these plays. It's rough. Kamara fucking looking like offensive player of the year though. I don't know if that dude just lubed up and was like, he can't tackle me. But Green Bay was doing a great job of social distancing with him. So props to them for staying healthy. No, Green Bay's defense scares me, man. It's like Seattle. It's like, dude, sometimes they're making plays, but dude, the moment you have to play against someone like Buffalo or Kansas City, it's bad. It's not going to be good. Yeah. I'm interested to see Seattle or Green Bay, San Francisco. Because I think Green Bay's offense looks so much better than it did last year. Aaron Rodgers, before this year, looked like a man who just didn't want to be on that field. It is a way I'd like. He was out there, but his soul wasn't out there. And this year, man, I'm telling you, watching him, he's got smile. His soul is on that field again, and he's lighting teams up, dude. He's killing it. Lazard is working. So, I mean, that's a huge positive. Is just I don't know if maybe just the change of scenery and the draft really kind of put a spark up his butt or something again. But he looks great. He's in the MVP race right now. I have him at 4th. I don't really. He feels like the guy in the race who's not actually in the race. If that makes sense. Like,
I would agree.
He's there, but I'm like, he's not gonna fucking win it. What? There's 3 guys here who really have a chance at winning it, and Rodgers is there because it's Rodgers. I am concerned again. Seattle and Green Bay are both the undefeated teams that I look and say, when you play a fully composed, competent team, I want to see what happens. Because that's where I will really make my decision about them. Because the New Orleans is all over the place. This defense looked terrible too, other than Demario Davis. Davis was killing it. He was out there slapping dicks. He was like, I got it. What the fuck are the rest of you doing?
So of course I did a deep dive on this game because I watched every snap, of course, and I'll start off with Green Bay because I think that's probably the easiest to talk about. Offense was firing on all cylinders. Run game was going, except for we cannot get the short runs with Aaron Jones. Stop putting him in there. It doesn't make sense. He is not a power back, and they keep using him in power formations. Put the tree trunk-legged running back that you drafted in the 2nd round to go get that for 1 yard. Give him touches. Doesn't make sense. Why'd you spend a 2nd round pick on him if you're just going to play him in garbage time? And the offense looked good without Devontae Adams, which is a big plus. So Devontae may take another week. He was in the warm-ups for the Saints game and possibly going to play, but I heard they might give him another week to see where he's at because they play the Falcons this week, and then they have a bye week. So if he gets 2 weeks off, and they can compete with the Falcons this week, because we know Matt Ryan's going to be tearing them up. If they can compete and still win still win without Devontae, then giving Devontae 3 weeks to come back from that is a plus for me. Moving on to the bad side of Green Bay, the defense could not stop a feather in the wind, man. We were so lucky to get that fumble at the end of the game. The defense wasn't effective, it seemed like, at all. We were playing long passes when they weren't throwing anything. Drew Brees didn't throw one ball over 20 yards. Not one. And he only threw I think he threw 5 passes beyond 15 yards. That is ridiculous. And they were playing the deep threat all game and letting Alvin Kamara run us over. And then I was watching a press conference with Matt LaFleur. He counted 13 missed tackles. 5 of them came on that long run for Alvin Kamara. And Jair Alexander, if he doesn't start wrapping up, he's going to get cut. I swear to God.
It's social distancing, man. It's important in the age of COVID.
If you do not wrap up Alvin Kamara, he's not going down. Plain and simple. He has the best balance in the NFL as a running back.
Would you like to hear a fun stat about Alvin Kamara this season?
Sure.
He's 5th in passing yards this season.
That's
in the league right
awesome.
Now.
That is awesome.
285 yards. He's 5th all in the league.
Well, that was really the only positive that I found in the New Orleans game was Alvin Kamara is still elite. He's still that man, you know.
Yeah, Latavius Murray has been a decent power back for them when they really need him.
Latavius Murray had great runs. Green Bay could not stop the run at all.
This offensive line is still a great unit for the Saints. They're still doing their job. It's just that this passing attack is miserable.
Well, Drew Brees' so dependent on the passing attack that they're totally foregoing their running game. Latavius Murray is so good. His like yards per attempt during this game was like 4.6. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
No, yeah, they have a good passing attack.
And they could not settle on running against the Packers, which is the Packers' main weakness.
It's because this team wants to score. This team is a lot like Arizona with that offense in a bottle kind of thing, but it's a little more like instead of a bottle, they have like a trench. But
yeah.
And
I'm not going to beat a dead horse. The obvious negative is Drew Brees. He's not passing deep. He's not an effective quarterback anymore. Defenses aren't going to be scared of him by midseason.
I think midseason he's gonna rebound a little bit. I think he's charging up. I think he is at an age where he really needed those preseason. So I think that this is going to be a second half of the season team. This is a team that we talked about, like Seattle and Green Bay right now really seem to have their shit together. Saints do not, and they're gonna get it together because this is too good of a team that they're not gonna not. Like that's honest.
Their defense is very good. Their defense is very good and scary, but they just let Aaron Rodgers blow them the hell up because they wanted to.
Well, if it makes you feel better, 31 NFL franchises have let him blow up their secondary. So, all right, final game, Monday Night Football.
Atrocious.
Chiefs Ravens. The Ravens it was a bad night. I'm not worried. I'm gonna be 100,000% honest. I'm not worried. This was just a bad day. It happens to every NFL team. Just a bad day. They couldn't get the run really working, so then it's just a bad day. Lamar even looking back at it, coming into that first drive, Lamar's energy was not there. His brain was somewhere else. I don't know.
He got a 35-yard run the first drive.
That's not hard for him. I'm gonna say that like it's like casual, like it's me walking down the street. It's not hard for him. His just energy just wasn't. His passing was a little iffy. I don't know. Maybe he had an odd week. Maybe he shit himself before the game or something. I don't know. Maybe
I will tell you, this game is one that they needed fans. If Baltimore's fans were there, this game would have been different.
We'll get to the Chiefs again. The Ravens just had a bad night. I don't think there's anything really I want to harp on with them. They just weren't really able to get stuff going. There was a highlight. I want to talk about it. He's my boy. He's my man. Devin motherfucking Duvernay on that fucking return. My boy.
99 yards.
I'm telling you, they're going to start hitting him more in those slot throws. And this was actually a thing. Every fucking throw from Baltimore felt like it was fucking past the 10-yard mark. They weren't throwing shallow. They were like trying to hit deep shots. And also, I mean, there were one or two that Mark Andrews and Hollywood dropped that they probably should have brought up. But at the same time, it's like, fucking hit your slot receiver. Devin Duvernay was destroying the Chiefs. I mean, he was on that sweep. He did great. Let's talk about Mahomes, though. He's having a baby. He's getting married. He's in the MVP race. The motherfucker threw 5 touchdowns last night against what we would say is the best team in the NFL. Like, he looked like beautiful. That helmet is so big on his head, though. That's all I could watch the whole game. His head, it didn't look right. That helmet too big. It looked like Peyton Manning. Those helmets just never looked like they fit right. But Chiefs looked great. I didn't have a negative about them. They should have thrown to Kelsey more. That's my negative. Fuck you guys. I want points.
I'll start with
Hashtag
Kansas City.
fantasy football problems.
Yes, exactly. Well, I had Lamar, and I played against Mahomes.
So did the guy sitting behind you.
Yeah, I know.
They didn't play Mahomes, but
so I'll start off with Kansas City. The obvious positive is Mahomes. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. The connection with Edwards-Helaire is growing, or Helaire, excuse me, is growing each and every week.
You gotta say 5 E's.
Yeah, well, the broadcaster for Monday Night Football kept saying Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, it was annoying.
Each time he said his name, yeah. But Edwards-Helaire is slowly building a great relationship with Patrick Mahomes, and it's only going to be, Kareem Hunt 2.0. So it's going to be scary for the rest of the NFL with Edwards-Helaire. Because Patrick Mahomes is 31 for 42, 385 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Did I say I'm a Cowboys fan? I've actually been a Chiefs fan my whole life. I don't know what you're talking about. What are Cowboys? Is that NFC? I only watch AFC.
I would say a negative for Kansas City was Harrison Butker missed another extra point, man.
Look, he also drained one later. Like it happens. Kickers have these problems. Don't read into it, I think, too hard.
I won't. I'm not going to read into this game a lot at all.
When we see this in like November, December, then I want to know what happens.
I think this will be Baltimore's Cleveland game of last year. They lost in Week 3 to Cleveland last year.
No, they lost to Kansas City in Week 3 last year.
Did they?
Fun facts, yeah.
I thought they lost to.
They Cleveland did lose to Cleveland in like Week 4 or 5.
Yeah, I would say that the Cleveland loss is what turned them around. And
you gotta win a game. You gotta lose a game or two. If Chicago's 85 Super Bowl team talked about it, that losing that game in that regular season against, I think it was Miami, was the best thing that happened to them. It humbles you a little bit. You got to remember what you're coming for.
A positive for Baltimore in this game, I found hard to find, but I compared Lamar in this game to Lamar versus Tennessee in the playoffs last year. Lamar crumbled in the first half in both games, but in this game, he had composure in the second. That is his 3rd year in the NFL, and his experience and his faith in himself staying with him. Last year against Tennessee in the playoffs, it looked sad. It looked like he had just given up, and the entire team had kind of given up when they were getting punched in the mouth. But the team did not give up in the second half. They didn't. And I was really happy with Lamar's performance in the second half especially. The bad part was that this Baltimore top seed or 2 seed defense looked like a practice squad. They are the
blitz was not working. They
blitzed the most in the NFL, more than any other team, and they had 0 sacks.
Mahomes was killing them on the blitz. I don't know why they kept it up.
Yes, Mahomes killed them on the blitz every single time, either if it was to Clyde Edwards-Helaire or if it's a short thing to Sammy Watkins or Kelsey.
Yeah, no,
they
it was not
picked up every single blitz and torched them for it. This defense needs a lot of work, a lot. And, they have I believe a week 8 bye. So they have some easier teams coming up for sure. They are playing at
Washington here this next week. So that's going to be probably a layup win for them just to kind of rebound and feel good.
Yeah, and then they play the Bengals Eagles, and then they have the Steelers before their bye week. But this team needs to do a lot of soul searching this week, especially on defense, and they need to prepare for good or great teams, that are in this AFC and on the rest of their schedule too. So it's.
Like I said, I just think it was a bad week. I think that people.
I think it was a bad week too, but I don't want to overreact to it.
The Chiefs had a horrible week too against the Chargers. It just happens. Great teams have bad weeks too. I can think of times where just great teams just goose-egged.
Yeah, if Kansas City had played like they played last week against the Chargers, this game would have been very, very close. And I think Baltimore would have edged it out.
Yeah. So that's week 3 in recap. However your team is doing, good luck. We have, I'm 1-2. Carl's 3-0. So different teams.
3-0 that I worry about, though.
It's COVID. Yeah. So actually, before we go off, I'm actually curious. What 3-0 team are you most worried about? Because I have two. Packers. It's Seattle and Packers. Those are the two that I'm most curious to see. And the one that I'm least worried about is Kansas City, but that was easy. But Buffalo.
Okay. If I'm being honest, though, it's the worst 3-0 team is the Chicago Bears. But besides that team, who will eventually fall off, I'm worried about
now. They're gonna go like 16-0, man. Hey man, a win's a win. Keep them tight.
Yeah.
So I will say this is my hot take for this coming week. I kind of feel like Seattle's in a trap game. I feel like Miami might upset Seattle to take them 3-1.
Well,
it just feels like one of those times when everybody's kind of like so convinced that Seattle will win. And I'm just kind of like, this just feels like a trap game. And sometimes if it feels like it's not, but
I think this is a probably like a 28-25 game.
Yeah, I look, it one of these happen. Seattle will absolutely torch the living shit out of Miami, or Fitzpatrick will just be like, gotcha.
It's in Miami. I don't know. Fitzmagic always does better in Miami.
Everyone but Tom Brady has more fun in Miami.
Oh, Russell Wilson?
Wilson
hasn't done the best in Miami in his career, but I think you're right that's a sneaky game. That's the one to watch out for.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. This is our week 3 review. Come back for week 4 in review, and we look forward to seeing you guys. And just keep subscribing, keep liking, keep loving.
Exactly.
You get if we get 100 subscribers, I'll leak Carl's nudes.
Ooh.
Okay, maybe cut that part out.
But we thank you guys for sticking around for another episode of the Pooch Kick Podcast. Don't forget to keep kicking those pooches. Hit that subscribe, hit that like button, just like Sam said. And you guys have a wonderful day.